You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mile You're In podcast. Today, we have a special guest on the show, the first guest in a while. I don't really have any announcements at the moment other than I'll just say, please pay attention when you're in the crosswalk, even if you have the right of way, because some of you might have seen I put on my Strava post last week that I got hit in the crosswalk. I'm okay. I'm still running. Thankfully, it was a very slow collision, almost perfect timing. I kind of bounced off the car, stayed on my feet. I think I did more damage to the vehicle than the vehicle did to me, but we're all good. I'm still running. I actually just did 22 miles this morning, so I'm okay. I'm doing fine. But let's get to our guest, Ellie Pell. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just jump right into it. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I'm Ellie Pell. I'm from Ithaca, New York. Right now I'm living in Boulder. I got a job out here working for Scratch Labs. So I just helped open their first Scratch Cafe. So I managed that. So right on Pearl Street downtown. Yeah, that's my day job. I love it. Scratch is an amazing company. I'm sure a lot of people listening have eaten Scratch and it's probably saved their lives at one point in a race. So I'm really proud to be part of the company. But I still consider myself Beast Coast through and through. You know, you can take me out of the Beast Coast, but you'll never take it out of me. So grew up around Ithaca, New York, sort of settled there. Well, actually, I grew up outside of Ithaca, and then went to college there for a year. Didn't like the college there, but I loved Ithaca. So I ended up settling there for most of my 20s. Loved it, still do. And really the reason I never thought I would move, actually. That's how much I loved it. But this job was kind of perfect. So, but I also do run. And so I started running about 8-9 years ago, out of college, did volleyball and basketball growing up. And so, that's just kind of basically me in a nutshell. I work and run and, it's a good time.
So I had to look it up and I see Ithaca is sort of close to where my family is out in the Buffalo, Hamburg, Albany area. So I'm sure.
Are you from Buffalo?
I am not. My dad's side of the family is, so I am a born into Bills Mafia member.
Yes, go Bills. I should have started that way. Okay, so my mom's family is from Buffalo, so I grew up going there all the time. Definitely consider myself Bills person. I don't watch the games, I'm not gonna lie, let's be real. But anytime you see a Buffalo, it's just go Bills all the time. I picked my first marathon, the Buffalo Marathon, based on that city. I love it there. It's just such a special place. It's a little cold now, but this time of year, but it's an amazing place.
Yeah, I want to do that race because it every 7 years or so, it falls on my birthday. So hopefully one year I'll be able to do that. So, and speaking of the cold, I'm here in Florida. We had maybe a month of winter. So do you like running in the cold? Do you prefer running in warmer temperatures? What is your take on that?
So growing up in the Northeast, you just kind of get used to it. I didn't pick up any other sport. Like I said, I grew up playing basketball and volleyball. So in the winter, we just went inside and did that. So I've never skied. I don't really have any other hobbies, sports that I play right now besides running. And so that being said, even the winter, we just run through the winter. And, I think I do enjoy it. But it's sometimes it's a type 2 kind of fun because a lot of times I have to run before work and it's dark and icy, and I got the yak tracks on or the trail shoes on, and you never really find a super great flow because you're like walking across the ice. And so but it does definitely make me a lot tougher, and I do enjoy it like in just a different way than ripping miles when it's warm out, I'd say. It's more like it's beautiful out here, and I just feel like that rush of, just being outside and moving my body, which I like. I focus on that a lot more in the wintertime than I have to in the summer, because the summer you're just so like blessed, like it's hard to not run. And so I'd have to say that like I prefer to run in warmer temperatures, but I enjoy what the other things that winter running brings to me.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, I actually went to go up to see a Bills game in Buffalo. And while we stayed in Niagara and I ran into Canada, it was snowing. It was only a couple inches, but I just had like some trail shoes that, just regular basic shoes, no tracks or anything. And I was just telling the story the other day that I don't know the difference other than like I could see road signs, so I could tell where genuinely the road was versus grass or whatever else I might have been stepping on. And I went to get off of the road as a car was coming, and I assumed I was just going to be stepping in more snow, and it was snow on top of water. I guess it was maybe a small little creek or something, and 22 degrees, one foot is soaking wet, the other foot is dry. It was an interesting couple of miles after that, but
I've had a couple runs that I distinctly remember. Like I've definitely like been on the way to or got hypothermia. And then like just even when you get back, like you're just cold the whole rest of the day. And but also it's like, I know those things, like I would never seek them out. I'm not a masochist. Like I'm just like, oh, that looks hard, I should do something harder. Like I'm definitely not that. But when I do go through those kind of things, it's one of those just like type 2, like you can do hard things. You can do this. You've done it before. But yeah, definitely would not choose to run in ice storms if I did not have to.
Got it. So I noticed when I was looking at your page, your website, the blog and everything, you had at least three listed shoes that you really like with On Running. What is it about those shoes? And if you can mention them, but what is it about those that you like? Because I know, like I work in run specialty, and right now we carry about 6 or 7 models. Right now in our area, everyone's asking for the Cloud Monster. That's like the big shoe, because I think everyone's kind of following Hoka, Max Cushion, and they're pushing that. What do you like about the shoes that you prefer to run and race in?
Sure. So full disclosure, I'm sponsored by On. So I get shoes for free. So I really get to pick what I like. And I also have worked in run specialty, and I try to be even though they pay me, like I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can with regard to each model. And so some models I just don't like. They don't work for my foot, but they work for like my teammate or ex-teammate, whatever, Allie. Like for example, the Cloud Flyer, or no, the Cloud Flow, I think it's a very minimal, minimal shoe, and like she will run like mountain races, trail races in this shoe. I put it on and I'm like, this is a sock. Like I can't even like, I can feel like the painted line on the ground, like right. And then also, but on the other extreme, like the Cloud Monster right now for me is like it's worked and for a while, but right now my feet are just like, and my body is kind of like not feeling that huge rocker plate, and so I'm not wearing that one right now, but I have them, so I'll go back to them eventually. I feel like my feet and body just change as I get more miles, as my life stress changes, as just the surface that I'm running on changes. And so I try a plethora of models. Right now, I really like the Cloud Stratus. So it's kind of like a mid-range shoe. My teammate Jeff and I really like it. What I actually like about On is it still is a little bit of a stiffer, firmer shoe. I know the Cloud Monster like looks super cush, but actually compared to like a Hoka, even Clifton, it's like, it's high, but it's not like, you're not sinking in it. It's still on the firmer side, even if you compare it to something like the Endorphin Speed or, because Saucony, that's my one bone to pick. I used to love Saucony, like the Kinvara. I've set all my PRs in the Kinvara. But now I don't like it because it's so tall and it's so plush. And I just liked that like racer kind of like very minimal, like the $90 shoe that you could I loved it. And so it's changed, which reflects the market. So On right now, it does have the Monster, but I feel like a lot of its shoes still are a little bit on the firmer side. So, definitely the Cloud Stratus. And then the Cloud Go is the newest road model that they debuted, I think, a couple of months ago. And that is a little bit more cushioned. So if you do it's still, to me, it reflects like the old Kinvara that I liked. Had enough cushion, but you're not stacked up tall, and it's just a nice daily trainer. So those are my two favorite road models right now. And then on the trail, I really am liking the Cloud Ultra. It kind of has a little bit of a sock-like fit on the upper, and then the bottom, the tread is not overly aggressive, which is kind of nice. I prefer to have like a road to trail shoe. I also used to love the Saucony Mad River. They don't make that anymore. And it was a great, good for trail running, but then also you can get faster, you can run on the road with it. And also in the winter, it's really great too. Right now, the trails that I run on, I tell myself I don't need super deep lugs. I think I just want something that's a little bit more snappy. So Cloud Ultra is definitely probably my top trail shoe right now.
Yeah, and when you mentioned Kinvara, that has a special place in my heart. I haven't run in the last model or the one. I haven't got to test out the new one about to come out, but I had about 3 or 4 pairs of those. One of my favorite shoes. A On shoe that does have a special place in my heart though is the Cloud Rush. I don't even know if On still makes that shoe or not, but years ago I got a pair, and that is the shoe I was trying for years. I've talked about this on the show before. I was trying for about a year and a half to go sub 20 in a 5K, which would have also been a PR, and I finally did it, and it was in that shoe. So that shoe will always hold a place in my heart because I finally reached 2 goals with that shoe. But yeah, I don't know if they still make it or not.
I see it. Okay. I'm Googling it. Oh, that's it. That's nice. Yeah. I don't think we still make it because you can get it for $89 on Mercari, but no, that's a nice shoe. It's nice looking.
Yeah, it was very lightweight. It was a lot less than the Flow that you had mentioned. It was a lot. It was more like a true racing, almost like a racing flat type of shoe.
Yeah. And I feel like it's interesting because when I first started 8 years ago, that would be your racing flat shoe, but you would only wear it for racing because after a while after the race your fins are no, please no. And that's a track spike. And now with the technology, technically you only get 150 miles out of your Alpha Flies, so tread with caution. But the good thing is whether you like what happened or not, after racing in something like that, you're not as sore. The recovery isn't as bad. Right. And so that is something that's kind of nice. I've run in a super shoe once. They honest sent me 3 pairs of the Cloud Echo Boom. I'd given 2 of them away, and I ran in one of them once. I just preferred a normal trainer for just my speed workouts, even at the track. I'm fine with just maybe if I go through another road marathon segment, I'll wear them more often. But right now, I'm fine with, my normal daily trainer.
Well, and now let's talk a little bit about Scratch. I mentioned that I just went on a 22-mile training run. I had my Scratch orange hydration mix. I have my little gummies. I even like the rice cakes. They're okay. They get a little melted in the
don't eat those while you're running. You're just choke. Do not eat the Rice Krispies while you're running. Oh God. Yeah.
But yeah, tell us a little for those who don't know about Scratch, because I again, being in run industry, it's still everybody kind of just thinks about Hammer and Goo and some of the other brands that are out there that have maybe been out there longer or more popular, but there's a lot of good brands still out there that are kind of unknown still, and I think Scratch is one of them.
Thanks for asking. This is actually great because we just had our first like 90-day, or no, it wouldn't even be 90-day, like one of our quarterly meetings the other week. And our big focus for 2023 is to get the runner population, which is interesting to me because especially ultra running, a lot of stuff that we do, like everyone loves Scratch, especially the super high carb mix, because you can get like in a bottle, you can get almost like 500 calories, which is really important. Like the science that's coming out is like, if you can get your body to tolerate like 500 to 600 calories an hour, like you're going to be in a really good position. So our super high carb mix has been like it's just blown up just because like it's a lot easier to get in that amount of calories in a easy digestible and like smaller volume of product. So Scratch Labs was started in 2012 by Alan Lim and Ian McGregor. And basically there were two cyclists, elite champion cyclists, and looking for like the next stage in life, basically. And so they started mixing up their own and stuff for their friends, just hydration mix. And then all their friends started to want it. And so they started making more and more quantities and things like that. And then Alan also, he's a chef, so he would make these rice cakes, but not the Krispies you're thinking of. It's actually like cooked rice and with flavored with different things, and then you fold them in aluminum foil, and then you could take them put them in your pocket and for a bike bag, which now ultra runners were like, we put them in our pocket, eat them.
Right.
And so that's kind of the basis of the company. It just sort of grew organically. And so we're at 11. We just celebrated our 11th birthday this past week. And so now we have a line of a bunch of different hydration mixes, also granola bars, energy chews. We have a recovery mix, which people are like, that is going to blow up, like the chocolate and the horchata. And now we're going to have a strawberry flavor. I drink so much of that, like all the time. And it is like the clutch thing, I think, just right after a ride or a run, even if I'm going to get breakfast right then, just like have that protein shake in my car. It's not even a protein shake, it's a recovery shake. So it's got that 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio. Just having that in my car, sipping that on the way to breakfast has been a game changer. And so that's like something I think that's going to eventually blow up. But anyway, we're very popular in the biking community as of right now, just because of the nature of who Alan and Ian are. But we are steadily, but to me, it seems like Scratch is everywhere. Like even when I was on the East Coast, like everybody came in looking for Scratch. So maybe more so with like the trail and ultra world, because bikers, they need fuel for 6-7 hours, which, a marathoner not necessarily need that long. So you probably wouldn't think about it. But ultra runners, we're out there for a while. So we need something that's going to, one, stay with us, two, be palatable. And also like we can drink it after 8 hours of eating candy. You need like something that still is calorically dense, that isn't going to like give you so much flavor fatigue. So that's Scratch, the endurance company. And then where I work is called Scratch Labs Cafe. So about 4 months ago now, I applied for a job like on a whim. Actually, I was working in run specialty and I loved it, but I wasn't making tons of money, and I was kind of just also ready for like the next step. And so I was applying for some jobs, and I got to the end of like a very long, like 4-month interview process for a job. And I thought I thought I had it, and I like lost out in the last round. So that's okay. And then basically that night I like went on LinkedIn to like lick my wounds basically. And I see this job posting for Scratch Labs that looking for a cafe manager. And I have a degree in exercise science, but also in my 20s, I worked in and managed cafes, and I really like it. I'm a pretty big extrovert. So I just read the job description and I knew what Scratch was. And I just applied. I didn't know where it was. It was more like, I'm sad. So, and then I got a call like the next day from now my co-chef, Aaron, asking to talk on the phone. We talked. 2 days later, I'm talking to the founder, Alan Lim, and then they offered me the job. And then I was like, wait, where is this located? And so then I like, oh, it's in Boulder. And they were like, can you come out in 2 weeks? And I was like, I guess so. So, thankfully, who I was working for is like at the Run Specialty is Ian Golden. He's my mentor, and so he knew about all this, and so he was like, "Yeah, 2 weeks go. Like, this is the perfect. Like, this job is great for you. Like, regardless of the beautiful running and stuff out there, and the people that you know, like, this is a great job. Like, this is you." And so, yeah, 2 weeks later, I found myself packed up my car and drove across the country and moved in here in Boulder.
Yeah, I've never been, but all the pictures I see from all the runners I follow on social media, like everything they post out there, I feel like here where I run, it's mostly city. You're looking at buildings. Occasionally you have the beach view, but a lot of it is still off in the distance. And it's just, I like when I ran in Canada and in Niagara Falls, around the falls and through the woods there, like I was doing like, I was supposed to be on vacation, and I was doing like 10 miles every morning before we went out and actually were sightseeing, because it was just so beautiful. It was so refreshing, so different. So like, I can imagine as a runner to work in running industry and be in such a beautiful running area and community has to be like just every day, like a blessing.
It is really fun out here. And I feel like actually, because now I'm like immersed in this like biking culture, which is really interesting. Because Alan and Ian started out as like cyclists, and like and also Scratch Cafe, like we've not advertised at all. Like everything we have is just word of mouth. And so we're growing steadily. But of course, if it's word of mouth, it's all like Alan and Ian's friends in the cycling community. So I'm learning so much about cycling. It's really fascinating. And then also like I've been dealing with a little bit of tendonitis in my foot. So a lot of my training has been on the bike. Like mine's indoors because it's winter here. And so it's actually been kind of fun for me too. Like I don't even like, I think I got a little bit, or people cautioned me, like, you know, everybody goes out to Boulder and like, there's so much running, and then if you can't run, you're like fear of missing out. And I don't know. Haven't really felt that, because one, I know that like, you know, niggles injuries happen. Two, I do feel involved with the other things that I do. I also like love this job. And I think that like having something like this gives me like purpose and meaning outside of the running that I do. So even though, yeah, it sucks that like I'm not running tons of miles, I'm usually doing like every other day right now. I still feel just like very content and complete in just other areas of my life. And so it makes the lack of tons of running in the mountains, like it's okay, you know?
Yeah. And since you brought it up, that was going to be the next point that we were going to discuss, was the injury that you had, the recent foot injury. What happened? How did that happen and occur?
Yeah, so like I'll try to sort of make it a little bit shorter, but basically I ran my first 100 miler last June, and it was really fun. I enjoyed it. But ever since then, my body has had like ups and downs, I'd say. Not as much consistency as I would have liked. I didn't pull like bounce back and run another 100 in the next month. Like it took me like a while to get back to even feeling like myself, not only just physically, but also mentally. It took a lot out of my brain. And then coming back to it, just a lot of like, yeah, I guess ups and downs is the best way to phrase it. Like I ended up getting a calcaneal stress fracture like a month later, and then healed that, was building up quite nicely actually from that. Like I felt really fit. And then I decided to do a 50K to see where my fitness was basically, but I felt really great, even like no indication that anything was wrong. And I start that 50K, and 5 miles in, all of a sudden, like my foot is just like throbbing in pain. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's the shoelaces, I'm troubleshooting, because like I'm flying on this 50K. I was like, this could be a PR day. Like, this is intense. Right. And I just felt great. Like, but no, by mile 6.5, I couldn't walk on it. And it was like the craziest thing. Like it just came out of nowhere. And I think that was in early December. And so since then I've been working with a PT and like talking to my coach, and also just like knowing my background in exercise science. I think it's probably some tendonitis that I just have on the left side of my body. My left side gets injured a lot. It's the same the same foot that I had the calcaneal stress fracture. And the reason that is because my left side is actually stronger than my right side. And so my body, like anybody, likes to compensate. And so I put a lot more load on that left side because it's stronger. And so then it gets more overuse injuries, and my gait mechanics are just not they just predispose me to injuries on that side. And so been working with the PTs, coming back slowly, and still, it's up and down. I can run and it's all right. And I'm sure in a previous version of Ellie, as soon as I feel like I can run, I'd be back out every day. But right now I'm at the point of I don't mind biking, and the injury is getting better, and I can run every other day and feel good about that. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I just this past weekend went to Arizona and I paced for the last marathon of 100K. And so I was able to do that. And it's funny that I ended up feeling miserable after that, but it wasn't because of the foot. The foot was fine. It was because I got severely dehydrated. Long story, but and so I feel good about that. I'm taking this week off just because even though I've done, a lot of long distances, 25 miles, kind of off the couch is with a lot of stress on my body. Mm-hmm. And so it's also snowy outside, and I don't have another race for months now. So it's a good time to take a little bit of an down week off season, even though I didn't have a spectacular, amazing race where I'm it's time for an off season. It's your body can just say I'm whipped. And it doesn't matter that I didn't race, you need to take some rest. And so I'm really leaning into that, and just, it's kind of also nice to have a job to go to. So I'm not just thinking about, I'm not running.
Yeah. And I like that you know when to step back. And I think obviously your education and knowledge makes that a little bit easier, where someone like me, we're a little more hard-headed, and we may not go and since we don't have that knowledge, we may not go and get the expert opinion and advice, and we kind of just run by feel, or we kind of push through it and just make things worse. But I also liked when you mentioned about the mental aspect of the 100-miler, because I think for me, I know after my first, I was eager to do another one mentally, but physically my body was not having it. And then as my body started to get used to all that miles and the time on my feet, it got to the point where physically I was ready to do another one after each one, but then I noticed mentally the toll was being taken. So it was, you got to have both, or you're just going to go into it with the wrong mindset and not motivated. Granted, I'm usually middle to back of the pack. I do it more just for the accomplishment and seeing how far I could push myself. But to be in your position where you're like you said, you're flying, you're probably at that point, I'm assuming, leading the race, you're in the PR pace, and who knows, course record, who knows what else is out there. That's got to be harder. But to know when to say, okay, this is only going to get worse, and a temporary injury could become long-term, you got to make the smarter decision. So that's good to hear, because a lot of times I think we're so in fear of DNF and not finishing, not getting, especially me, if I spend the money to enter a race and to travel to a race and everything that goes into it, I'm pushing through it, and they're gonna have to take me off this course. But it's good that you could make the smarter and wiser decision that some of us don't.
It's not easy. And also because always in the back of your mind, you're oh, could I push through that? Or right. Me limping through the hotel and having to need a wheelchair, I'm I think I'm better. But it's the game we play in our mind, right? And I still consider running a hobby. It's fun for me. I would rather be able to run 3 to 5 miles every day than having this 10-year period where I'm ripping these events and whatever. I want to be running 3 to 5 miles when I'm 70, because I just love it. And so it's kind of also thinking long term. I love doing this. I want to figure this out. And so I want to figure out, continue to figure out the puzzle that my body is, and that how I can run healthily and sustainably. And some people like can do 100 miles a month or 100 miler a month, and great, that's awesome. I mean, like that right now, and permission to always change because your body's always evolving. Right now, that's not my truth for my body. And so right now, my truth is running every other day and doing some biking and, seeing what I can put together. And I don't and just because I like it so much, and I also like competing, and I like doing things that are a little uncomfortable. I don't see that changing just because I like take a rest week or stop a race or DNF a race. There's always more races, and at the end of the day, like COVID taught me that like I just love the community of running, and like that won't change regardless of if I race or not. Like I have people in my life that I love that running has brought to me, and they're not going to leave me.
Right. Well, and since you mentioned it, the 100 a month, I actually know somebody, he did 100 for 100 weeks in a row. Was
it Michael Ortiz? Is that him?
Yes.
I know him. Yeah. So in the East, I was one of the like leading kind of members of the Trails Collective, and I think we had him on a couple of our shows or something, like a holiday show or whatever. Yeah, because he started doing that like in COVID too, or like COVID happened.
A
lot of them on the treadmill.
Yes, around his apartment, on the roof. I've actually done, I think, 3 or 4 of the races in that 100 streak. Him and I did together. So by the last one, as he was getting closer, and I knew this was my last 100 for a while. Like we talked about it a little bit. It's cool to like know that I had no role in it, but like I was a part of that record, that history. Is that I was there for some of those races, and I seen him grinding, and just his attitude and his mindset was incredible. Because I'm complaining at times, and then I'm like, well, this dude's on his 62nd or whatever in a row, and he's got another one next week, and here I am complaining. Like I need to shut up and just suck it up, but.
It really puts things into perspective. I mean, this past weekend I paced this person, and I didn't know him. The person I was supposed to pace, he ended up dropping out of the race, so I didn't have that job. And but so he drops out, and I'm like ready to go, and so I just like mosey around the tent, and there's this guy sitting in a chair, and he's like, the volunteer is trying to convince him to keep going, but he's been there for a little while, and he's like unpinning his bib, and I just walk over, and I was like, I think you should not do that. Like, I think I can get you to the finish line. Like, it's going to be okay. We're good. Like, and so I ended up convincing him to get out of the chair, and like, so we're going, and like, he's like in a low spot. So like, we're going slowly, but we ran the whole thing, and this was 100K. So he had 40 miles in him, and I was taking him for the last marathon. And like, by the end though, like I'm straight off the couch, like really, like, by the end, it was like me, like, okay, don't let him know how much you're suffering. I'm like, Ellie, he's run like 100K. You've run like 20 miles. Like you, and he's just chugging. He's finally just like he's in pain, but he's chugging along, and I'm behind him, like, don't let him know you're suffering.
Oh, that's great. So, and speaking of that, because I actually, it kind of ties into this. Like, I was watching. Like you said, some of the stuff Michael was doing during COVID and posting, even doing like some live videos of the stuff he was doing in his apartment because of COVID and still trying to keep the streak alive. And it ties into the something you mentioned in one of your blogs, which you guys have to, I'll link it in the show notes. You guys got to check out the blog. I'm not a big reader, but her blogs had me like locked in, like my ADHD wasn't kicking in at any point.
Thank you.
But you mentioned like limiting social media or just social interactions sometimes in general online, because people tend to wear us out, or things that we may see can be toxic, can be negative. You might, I seen something you mentioned about some of the advice people may give you, and if you're not knowledgeable, you might take the wrong advice. So what was your experience with that and taking a break? Because I recently took one. I deleted everything. I even stopped the podcast for a while because it's just, like you said, that social interaction, eventually it just drained me. And I I felt better when I took the break. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So, social media, love it and hate it, right? I mean, I have made a lot of friends on there, and then like just this past weekend, seeing them in real life and just like being friends already. It's wonderful. I think a couple years ago, maybe like helped along by COVID, I just realized that like I didn't want to let social media use me. I wanted to use it for specific reasons, because scrolling on things, like, sure, you might be inspired or whatever, but like 9 times out of 10, unless you're in the right mindset, something somebody does, even though if it's cool or whatever, it's like, it's kind of also you're comparing what you've done to what they've done, right. Even if it's not, it's subconscious. Like we do it automatically. It's just human nature now, heightened because of social media. It's funny, like, just thinking back, like when I was growing up, it was guys would compare themselves to each other. Like, could I beat that dude in a fight? And girls would be like, am I prettier than her? And now it's just like, and so like that was the comparison then. And now it's like just everything. And you get so many more images coming at you. And I just found myself getting more overwhelmed. And so what I decided to do was kind of restructure, just like, I made rules for social media for myself, specifically for Instagram, and that I only get a half an hour a day, and that's everything. That's posting, that's responding to messages, that's whatever, half an hour. And then I also like, I unfollowed everyone and then refollowed like my friends, and just like, that's it. Like I don't follow Courtney DeWalter. I don't follow Shalane. Like I don't know them. Like I want to, like, I think in one of my posts, I don't remember exactly what my rules were, but it was like, number 1, I know you in real life. Like, right. Number 2, I like you in real life. Like, number 3, like, I remembered to follow you. Like half the time, like I just don't remember because I'm just not that prolific. I think that like, because I'm very active in like Instagram stories and things like that, like I think people think I'm on like social media more than I am. It's more like the only time I'm on there is if I'm posting a story or responding to a message. And so like by the time I get done doing that kind of stuff, I don't have any time to scroll through things. So I don't see both like the amazing accomplishments or the bad things, or like, I don't see all those things. And so like, it actually is like really clarifying for my mind, because like, I can't compare myself to like that someone if you don't know what they did, So it's kind of like taking out a lot of the excess, like just images and things get thrown at me. And then like, I really just sort of wanted to use the platform to like, just, yeah, I mean, like, I think my relationship with it now is that like, I don't feel like I have to do these big like social media, like take everything off and like, burn it all down, because I have these rules that like help protect my mental health all the time. And as long as I follow those rules, I don't need to burn it all down, because like, it's a great tool. Like it's a great way to message friends. It's a great way to share some funny things that happen during the day, especially here at Scratch. But also like, I don't scroll, I don't spend more time than necessary. And I think keeping those rules, even if like sometimes it is a little limiting, it really just does help like my mental health. And so I've done that for a couple of years now. And even when I like won a golden ticket and I got sponsored, and like there are things that like sort of I wanted to spend more time on social media, because that's fun, right? You win a race, you're like, yeah, show me the money, But even then I was like half an hour, like, and it just was very protective, because now especially I haven't really raced since October is the last race that I like won. And so, and then just having these injuries up and down, it's like, well, now I don't feel like I don't want to spend time on social media as much. I'm not responsible to anything. And it's kind of great. Like you set the boundary, and then you have that boundary, and then it protects you from when you're in the lows.
Yeah. I felt like for me, it got to the point where like, definitely there was way too much scrolling, too much time looking for things on there. But like I always, anytime I would see somebody accomplish something, or even if it wasn't like, if it wasn't a good post, like I would try to interact with like the people I did know. But when I would go through, let's say a DNF or I had a bad race, didn't go well, or maybe an injury that had me out of running for a couple days or weeks, like I would still go on there. And instead of, I should have just said, okay, don't get on there. But I'd get on there, and now I see these posts that I normally am happy to see, but it was making me almost bitter, because I'm like, oh, why are they healthy? Why are they having great races? Why are they having so much success? You know, and it's that you, like you said, you start to maybe compare yourself to other people and other people's accomplishment. And you got to realize that we all, you know, when I did a deep dive into it, I'm like, well, some of these runners are training way better. Their nutrition and hydration is way better. Their plan is better. So it's not always, you know, like an equal playing field if you're not putting yourself on that same level that they are. But just in general, like, yeah, like you get on social media and you see, it's almost like you mentioned earlier, the fear of missing out. Because I kind of grew up at the beginning of the whole social media thing, so I'm still not too familiar with life without it, other than when I was a kid. But there were things you didn't know happened unless somebody told you, if you heard a friend of a friend of a friend type of thing. So now it's like you could just go on social media and you don't always see even the people you're following. You see suggested stuff and things, and it just, yeah, all the things you don't intend to see, you end up seeing, and it can have that negative effect on you. Now with that, like, you start to make a disconnect, because again, you even mentioned not always just social media in general. Something else you mentioned was making that effort to call and talk to, like, the intimate loved ones, even when it's hard to do. Like, you may not be in the mood to, but knowing that it can be a benefit to you, because we need that positive affirmation in our lives, especially during the low times, the grinds. It's not like we're attention seeking, but sometimes we are too hard on ourselves. We have that pity party, and talking to someone who has a different mindset and looking at it from a different angle from the outside looking in can just spark something within us emotionally and mentally. What kind of leads to that? Like, what was that about, if you recall that part of your blog?
Yeah, so I kind of realized that I like talking on the phone more than I like texting or DMing. And also, have you ever, like, started, maybe you thought about somebody, like a friend or whatever, and I know for me, like, initially, before I started doing this, it was like, oh, they haven't texted me in forever. Like, that's like, they're not thinking about me. Like, they don't care about me, or like, just sort of spiral for no reason. Like, and then, like, I remember the day it occurred to me, like, I was thinking about my younger sister, and she's my best friend. And I was like, Laurel has not texted me in like 3 weeks. Like, what's going on? And then I was like, Ellie, have you texted her? Mm-hmm. Like, have you reached out? Like, why is it on her? And so then I was like, you know what? I would rather just talk to her. So I just picked up the phone and called her. I don't remember if she picked up. I probably left a message. Like, some of the voice messages we leave for each other are classic. But I hope she plays them at my funeral. Like, and then I was just like, and then I just thought, like, whenever I think about somebody, if I can't call them, just text them. Like, I feel like, especially in social media, it's like, oh, you don't want to be the person to text first, because that means that, like, you know, you're being vulnerable, or like, you know, got to be the cool person, you know, like, everybody wants my attention. Like, right. I don't need, but I think that's bullshit. Like, no offense. I hope I can swear. Like, if I'm thinking about somebody, like, why not just text them and say hello? I do this all the time. And now I have like a slew of people that I call them when I want to talk to them now, and they expect it. And now it's actually like infiltrated, like, my friend group. And so, like, my sister's one of my best friends, and then I have two other ones, Riley and Amelia, and like, and even Riley's mom, and like, and because I just started calling them, and now they call each other, and so we all just call, instead of texting or whatever, we just started this, like, made it part of our culture. Just like, if you're thinking about somebody or thinking about each other, just text or call each other, rather than like wonder, like, what is this person doing, or like, why haven't they texted me, or whatever. It's like, who cares? Just reach out, you know. And I kind of love it, because, like, if I'm thinking about somebody, like, how cool is it if somebody like you're just having a day or whatever, it's a busy day at work, and you just a friend that you haven't talked to in like a month and a half or like whatever, like it's just like, hey, I was thinking about you. What's up? And I love doing that. And I know people love it when I do it. So it's like kind of both. Like it fills my cup. And I also know like if somebody out of the blue was just like, I'm thinking about you because you're awesome. And like, what's going on? It's just, I don't know. I feel like it makes me happy. It makes other people happy. And so, yeah, I just sort of, I prefer to do that now but in the beginning, it was definitely a little bit like, it takes effort to like talk to people or like, you know, especially like it does. It's a little bit of because you don't want to sound weird. And then like, if you don't normally call somebody, it is weird and they think something's wrong. And so, but once you get the practice and the dialogue, it's like, now we just expect it. You know, like my Saturday routine, if I don't have to work, is like, I usually do a run and then I call Riley and then I eat and then I nap. And, you know, it's just a thing that we do now. And I don't know. I think it's worked out for me in my life. It's really added to it.
Yeah, I know for me personally, part of it is I do have an introverted personality, and then I am a Gemini, so we do have mood swings from time to time. Typically it's after, like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, like a bad race or a bad run or an injury. Like a lot of my stuff comes from just running stress. And, you know, like you had mentioned, it can be hard to be the one that reaches out. But I noticed, especially previously when I was more active on social media, people would notice like, all right, he's gotten quiet. Like he normally posts every day, or he's at least active and commenting on stuff. So people would realize that I was quiet, but they wouldn't reach out. Like maybe one or two would, but a lot of them wouldn't reach out to say, hey, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? And the same consistent handful would. And then I'd run into others and they'd be like, oh, I haven't heard from you forever. And in my head, I'm like, well, you have my number. You could have, like you said, like you could have reached out too, but you try to avoid that. So yeah, I think that's one thing, is getting out of our head. You know, again, the social media can affect it, but also if you stay in that silence and you wait for someone to reach out to you instead of you making the effort all the time, like those silent moments where you just stay in your head sometimes can have that negative effect on you in the long run.
And also, talking about hard things, it helps you get over them quicker. Like, I mean, if I have a bad run, or if I have a run where I think that maybe I might be on the verge of an injury or I'm sick or whatever, like, I know that if I talk to Amelia or Riley or my sister or something like about it, even they're not going to solve my problem. Like I will never solve their problem, but like just talking about it and being like, I'm voicing my concern because this could be an injury, and maybe it is, and maybe it's not, but like just saying it out loud and having them like validate, like, yeah, that sounds hard. Like, oh, that stinks. Or like, you know, it's, and just being able to voice it, it sort of like takes the power away. Cause like, I mean, I did have an injury. It sucked. But like, also it sort of puts it into a larger context. Like, it's going to be okay. Cause like, I'm a person outside of running. I'm a person outside of this injury. And like, sort of voicing what you're going through, it loses its power, you know, like, back like, about 10 years ago, I dealt with an eating disorder, and it's like, being like that, an eating disorder or any addiction thrives in shame and guilt. And if you like take the veil off of it, and it's like, I'm not ashamed that I had this, I got through it, you know, it takes its power away. And that's really meaningful, even if it's just a thought switch. Right.
Because it's, you know, I've mentioned with my listeners, the addiction to alcohol and the effect that had on me. And it puts you have like this blanket of shame and embarrassment at times, and you feel like nobody can relate. And like you said, you may have a conversation with somebody about it, and you're venting and you're just releasing the frustrations, but you know, they may not always have the answer, or they may not have a solution. They may offer advice, or they may just be there to listen. But sometimes that's all you need is somebody to be there and just say, hey, I'm here for you. Like, let it out. And you know, even if it's just a couple comfort words and knowing, like you said, you get it out, because sometimes if you keep it in, it just builds up and then that addiction or whatever you're struggling with, you kind of fall back to that even worse, because that's almost like a security blanket for you. It's a negative comfort for you. Now, speaking of the injuries, I noticed you had mentioned, and I think that's probably where even like cycling might be a benefit to you, but like you put in the workouts and other modalities. And I think we tend to forget that, not just in sports, but even like in your education. Because I noticed like you even mentioned like the PhD and like the kinesiology, or I'm saying that wrong, but
I have a degree, not a PhD, just a regular degree, kinesiology, but it's basic exercise science.
Okay. But didn't you say, I thought I saw a PhD to say, I thought your bio said a PhD in, you sure? I'm gonna look that up when I ask you this next question.
If it's something sarcastic, I do.
Okay. Actually, you know what? That's probably what now I remember. It said a PhD in Google. So that's probably.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay,
I can look anything up. That's how I got this job.
That's what I knew. I saw a PhD and I was trying to remember what you said it was in. But like, even in that, like in our education and like being able to realize that not just one thing is going to make us good. Like if you go to the gym and you're just bench pressing, you're only going to really work a couple muscles. But if you start using other machines or doing other free weight exercises, it's going to build the supporting and surrounding muscles that make you stronger and help you reach other goals. So in running, people do yoga and Pilates and cycling and swimming and other things that still work those surrounding muscles. So was that something you started doing because of the injury to try to like work on like just keeping yourself stronger to avoid other injuries, like you had said, because of the left side, or that was just something you did to like maybe change things up and mentally make it a little more exciting?
A little bit of all the above. I think I don't have a history of running, so I made all the mistakes in the book. And also just with some lifestyle choices that I had made in my early 20s and late teens, I really want to be conscious of what the limits of just my body structurally. And so I have just embraced cross training as a way to take some pounding off of my body. And so I have been a relatively moderate mileage person. I don't think I've ever run 100 miles in a week. And I'm fine with that, but I do. And I've just sort of, after a while, especially running on the road all the time, I don't know. I mean, I would just rather do something else for my second workout of the day. So I would go to the gym and just fool around for a little while. And then also, when you being injured, cycling or even using the elliptical are just great ways to have some fun and still, get the endorphins, get the heart rate up. I like to listen to podcasts during that time. And so, I just sort of have embraced all forms of movement because, I love running, but also I sort of just like moving my body and also just a different stimulus, I really like being a beginner at things. If I ever write a book, it's going to be titled or my biography, it's going to be titled Not a Natural. I've never been naturally good at anything. I just am stubborn as a mule. And if I find something that I kind of am getting little breadcrumbs of oh, you're getting a little better, that's just how running is, or cycling or endurance sports at all. It's crack to me. I'm yes, let's do it. And so, with other sports like cycling or even the elliptical, which is kind of it's a weird machine and but I mean, even that, just little bits of progress or stuff like that. It's just, I kind of think it's fun. And I like challenging my body in different ways. And so, I've just really embraced it and it just works for me.
And since you mentioned it, out of curiosity, I guess maybe even more for myself, I always wonder for your 100 miler, because people ask me this all the time, so it makes me want to ask you. The two questions I always get was, what was the most, if the most miles you ever did in a week, and what was your longest training run?
I think I peaked at 86. And that was, I went to Western States training camp. And so you run 50 miles in a weekend. And so that was my biggest block, because I did that and then I took a day off and then I did two more 20-mile days. ish. I think so. It might have been a little less, but anyway, so I think 86 or 88. And then, but normally I'm like, in the past, I've been around like 60 to 70, but I told my coach for this whatever we build towards to next, I don't want to go over 50. And that's just because, one, it's a challenge for me. Just like, oh, I'm at like, 49 and a half. I can't go another mile, guys. I'm sorry. And then also I do like, there's a really big biking community here in Boulder and I would like to try it. So I feel like it would be kind of fun to do something different and also keep like less pounding on my legs just in this time where I'm still trying to figure out how strong they are.
Gotcha. Okay. Because again, everybody that I talk to when they find out I did 100 miles, they always ask me that question, and I'm like, honestly, like like that I can recall, I think 55 might have been the most I did even in a week, and like my
yeah, that's substantial.
Yeah, and longest training run was 40 miles, like solo. So just or like. I did do a 50-mile race, so I guess, but I don't consider that
races. Right, might amp up the mileage a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I sort of, I mean, I've only had a coach for the past 4 months actually, and so before that, I just planned my own thing, and I really liked it. It was more like I'm kind of moving into a new environment. I got a lot of going on, and so I figured. I really liked, I used her book to train myself anyway. So I started working with somebody, but I'm really trying as hard as I can to just like listen to what my body wants. And that's mentally and physically. Like if I want to get to 10, but my mind only has 5, like I got to listen to that too. I mean, there's sometimes when you need to tough it out, but I'm going to save the toughing it out for the race. So when it's like mile 95 and I need to tough it out for 5 more miles, I'll take that 5 then.
Yeah, like even actually, it's funny you say that because this morning I started out and I didn't think I figured I was going to take a detour eventually because the first 4 to 5 just felt like very sluggish. I just mentally didn't feel it. But I took a break at 4.5 and got something to eat, got something to drink. And all of a sudden it was like new life and my legs had life in them and mentally I felt awake. The sun started coming up. So it was like things were changing. And then the rest of the run was like way better than the first hour. So it's like you said, sometimes you do push through because if it's more just a mental thing or a physical thing. But sometimes even if it is mental, like you said, you got to save that grind for when it really matters and when it counts. Those five miles that you deducted that day aren't going to negatively really affect you come race day because there's a whole different level of endorphins that are going through your head with everything that's going on around you. Now through all this with like the ups and downs and everything, the other point that I wanted to touch on that I try to stress all the time on all my episodes was something you mentioned about practicing extreme gratitude for every small thing. And I know sometimes it sounds cliche. We think, it's easy to say that, easier said than done. But I think if we really take a moment, and I think that's where like getting off of social media is big, because if you're going through a hard time and you're on social media and you're seeing all these other people having so many great success, because a lot of people just post the good stuff anyways. If you can really sit down and like evaluate everything that's going on around you and everything up to that point in your journey, whatever it may be, there are many things you still can be grateful for. It's not to say that what isn't going your way or what didn't, like the job you didn't get, it ended up still working out in the end. You went on LinkedIn and found something. There's still blessings in everything if you look deep enough. So what, is there a scenario? Like what makes that easy? Is that hard for you to do in those situations? Like, how is that experience whenever you're going through something to find the positive or what to be grateful for out?
Yeah. So when I wrote that, I think I was actually talking about even smaller, like silly things. So a couple of years ago, was listening to, I think it was probably Rich Roll. He's one of my favorite podcasts. And he described, in this phrase will always stick with me, and that's what I want to embody, is like having a low threshold for gratitude. So that means like anything that, like, just noticing like what little things just might make the day brighter, or might make you just like smile or something. So like, and I don't even mean like having something like a hardship and then being like, oh, well, I will learn something. Like, cause I mean, sometimes things really suck and you just gotta be like, this is awful. Like, but like, I mean, little things like, okay, like today I came into work and it was like 7 a.m. and I didn't sleep great last night, and you just walk into work and I noticed that like somebody had shoveled the sidewalk outside of work, so I didn't have to. I was like, that's so great, like wonderful, awesome, like just noticing like that's cool. I walk in and one of the chefs in the back is like, Ellie, we have an extra breakfast burrito, would you like it? And I was like, what? Yeah, that's awesome. Like just little things that are just like, or like, you finish a bag of chips and like the end of the chip bag has like those like really good like burn bits. I'm like, yes, like it's just like little things that are just like silly that just make me smile or just make the day, like even if it is stressful or I'm going through a lot or I have a lot of things that I need to remember to do, just little things that make me smile or just make the moment a little bit better. And I started to practice that a couple of years ago, because I think during my 20s I went through a lot of stuff that just made me kind of pessimistic, and also I grew up in a family that was rather pessimistic, and I realized like you don't need to be that way. And I'm not a misery loves company person. I'm like, I'll listen to you, but like I'm not just gonna like rag on tons of things. Like if you need someone to listen to you, I will validate your feelings, but I'm not going to make it worse, because even though it feels good in the moment, misery loves company, that will make it worse. And so like just little things that every day, like the coffee tastes really good today, or like, oh, I thought that I ran out of my hydration mix, but I found an extra serving. That's awesome. Just little stupid stuff that like in my brain just like add up and make me a happy person. And so, I'm extroverted. I have a lot of energy. And I think it's just the constant process and just the building of how I've just made it. One of the things that I do is just to appreciate little things around me. And I lucked out actually with Aaron, co-chef who I mentioned earlier, who works at Scratch, like little thing, like even if we're just being like a jerk to each other, just like, I appreciate you, like, or I'll be like, Aaron, this is a wrong order, like I need you to fix this, and then he'll be like stressed and I'll be like, I appreciate you, as I walk around the corner. And it makes us laugh, and it just but also just, you should appreciate the people in your life for the things that are good. I mean, we live in a great time right now. I mean, things are hard, but like objectively speaking, like this is a really great time. And I don't know, I like to be thankful for those things, because also when I am sad, I'm sad at shorter, like it's shorter, like I'm able to be happier and also get back to my level of Ellie excitement and happiness quicker, because I just see tons of things around me that I'm like, oh, that little thing is kind of great. That's great. That's great. And so, yeah, that's just kind of what I meant by, always being grateful for things. It's not a momentous thing. It could just be like, oh, they had an extra like taco and I got it. Great.
No, and that's great. It's still, it's a valid point, because again, if we just harp on the negative all the time, we become blind to those nice things, like somebody even just holding the door for you or letting you in if you're stuck in traffic, or in my case, like this morning, where car after car was not letting me get through, even though I had the right of way, like they just were blocking, and one guy waited and waved me on. It's little things like that, like you said, it doesn't always have to be, oh, I'm getting something financially or physically, or a gift, or somebody's doing something specifically for me intentionally. Sometimes it's the unintentional, just random things that happen, that if you are aware of it and you recognize it, can instantly change your mood. And like you were saying, it can get you out of the funk faster than if you kind of ignore that.
And it translates to racing and running, right? Like, I mean, at some point during a race, like your body's going to hurt. You're going to be breathing hard. It's going to be painful. But like capitalizing and focusing on like either like taking your next gel or just something nice that's going on, like a pretty view, or like, oh, I don't have blisters today, that's awesome. It sort of does like help a lot. And that's really come into my running, is because like sometimes, like especially with tendonitis, like I'm not running fast, it's kind of painful, it makes me feel out of shape and stuff, but like, you know, there are little things like, oh, I didn't slip on the ice today, winning, you know. So just like stuff like that it translates. And I don't know, I like being happy. I'd rather that than be but happiness is also like, it takes work, like it's a process, and you gotta, and it's not a switch flips. It's like, you know, when you're in the suck, because I think you should feel the suck, you need to learn how to deal with it. But when you're in the suck, also like finding little nuggets that take you out of the suck.
And I always say ride the highs and grind the lows, because like you said, you're gonna have those moments, but if you stay in it, then it lasts longer. So there's times like even in my training runs, I'll just, like, if I realize I kind of been in a zone for a while, I'll physically talk to myself and say, hey, how are you feeling? And then I'll be like, oh, well, like you were just saying, like, oh, all right, I'm not chafing, I don't have any blisters, you know, I'm feeling good mentally, I feel good, there's no cramps, there's no, like all the hydration and nutrition is staying in me, and it's so, like you said, like you almost do like a check of what's going on, and you realize, okay, yeah, there's some bad things, but there's a lot of good things going on as well. And that the last thing I really wanted to touch on from your blog before we wrap it up is, and I quoted it, I didn't even want to like just paraphrase, but your quote was, we all die, some make the next thing you do, make the next thing you do, whether it's having a snack, going for a walk, accepting a new job, choose something that reminds you that life is finite, life is beautiful, and as you said, even the shit has meaning. Where did that come from?
Back then, oh man, months ago, Ellie was so smart.
That's that PhD in Google.
Right, there you go.
Do you recall what inspired that? Because I think sometimes when we're in, it could be either side of the spectrum, but I feel like sometimes in those deeper moments, like if we're going through something like that, embracing the suck or grinding the low, sometimes we come out with stuff like that's even deeper than where we're in our best and most positive spirit.
Yeah, I think that post, like I was feeling a lot of things, and everything was a little bit overwhelming. And I think finally at the end, I really just like remembered, like, dude, you're gonna die. So like, you know, it's gonna happen. And so one, like choose the, like whatever you do, like make sure that it's like good for you. But then also like remember that like it doesn't matter. We're not gonna take anything here with us, you know? And so like release a little bit of the pressure of, you know, I think in that post I was like, I don't know what to do with sponsors, like if I get injured and all this stuff, and like
yeah,
it's okay like not to know, and also like no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And because like at the end of it all, we do all die.
Exactly. And that goes back to just being grateful, right? Because if we dwell on the negative the whole time we're here, then it's kind of like you missed out on the beauty of life. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know what's next. I mean, but like right now, I want to be happy, but I want to struggle. I want to thrive. I want to feel everything, because I have a finite time here. So let's do it.
And like, even for me, like I look back, I had went on three weekly trips to Haiti right after the earthquake had happened to help out and volunteer. And I'm telling you, the mindset of them, despite what they were going through, was just incredible, to where we would have these conversations sometimes, and they would ask me about America, what my life was like, because they had no clue, or they might have just heard things from the radio, or maybe if they saw TV and, you know, they see a movie and they think that's what America is and what life is. And we would have this conversation, and I'd realize man, I'm like, in many ways, I'm blessed, and I didn't realize it until I took those trips and specifically sat with those people. And it was like the wisdom they had with the little bit that they've experienced opened my eyes to so much to be grateful for and take advantage of the time we have. So like today when I was running and I was passing this guy coming out of the gas station, and he was smiling at me, and sometimes there's a lot of where I run, there tends to be a lot of unfortunately drug addicts. So I was like, all right, is he just on something and he's being goofy? But like, as I got closer, he was like, oh man, you look great. How far are you going? And I was, cockily. I was like, 22 miles. And he was like, dude, that's freaking awesome. Like you look great, man. And then I just blurted out, I'm doing it while I can. And it, for the next probably mile, I was just thinking about this, like, wow, like I'm able to do something a lot of people can't, and many want to do. And sometimes I take it for granted. And it's like, just appreciate what you're able to do while you're here and physically able to.
For sure.
So what's next? I know you touched on some things, that you have some plans for some things, but what's next for Ellie?
Oh man. So I'm taking a rest week this week, and then we'll slowly see what the body can handle. My next race that I'm registered for is the Leadville Marathon. It's here in Colorado, June 17th, I think is that day. And then the weekend after, my best friend is running 100 miles and I am pacing them for 20 miles of it. So that's kind of what's on my radar. And then opening a restaurant is a lot. It's so much fun, but it's a lot of work. And so still figuring out all the stuff here at scratch and exploring Colorado. So yeah, nothing huge, nothing sexy, but enough.
Got it. And now we know, we've learned from what you said earlier, we may not get follows back, but for
introduce yourself to me if I like you and I remember. Hey, never say never. I mean, it's more like I just don't think about it.
It's it's funny you had brought that up, because like initially, because before the podcast, I had a website for probably 5 years before the podcast thing started, and I would follow everyone that came on and did interviews and did features with me, and I'd follow them, and only some would follow me back, and I was still younger, a little immature, and I was like, then I'm not following you back. Like, if you're like, I thought we were friends here. I thought we were cool. I thought we had a partnership affiliation going. But, it's like the more I talk to different people, not just athletes, but people in general, it's the same thing like you said. And I realized I would do the same thing. It's like, eventually I don't want to follow everybody, because then my timeline, if I do want to scroll, just becomes clogged with a lot of stuff I really don't care to see. I'd rather, like, if I want to see certain things, then I'll go YouTube search it or Google search it. I'd rather see, if I am going to scroll for however many minutes or whatever, the people that I'm closest to and things I'd like to actually see, people that I interact with. So when you mentioned,
I always say I'm so much better in person, like, and so, I don't need, like, send me a DM, we'll talk. Like, that's better for me. I love it. Like, so I'm much better in person. So
for those that still would like to, because I'm not going to unfollow you, I'm following you on Twitter. And then if you mention one, I will follow you on Instagram too. But where could we follow you if we want to just join the journey of what you go through daily?
So I'm at Gazzellie on all the socials, Gazzellie. It's a play on my name. And then I do like writing on my blog. I try to write posts. So like, honestly, like I'm at elliepell.com too. It's great.
Yeah. So I'll put those in the show notes for everybody. Just so, if you do want to follow, just don't get upset if she don't follow you back. Okay.
Well, if you're in Colorado, come visit me at Scratch. Like, I love meeting people in person. And so that's better for me.
There you go. If you're out that way, or if you're visiting, now you know, just don't make it awkward. Just say, hey, I heard you on the Mile You're In podcast, little plug there. And and she'll remember. So
for 10% off. No.
oh, there you go. Look at that.
There you go. Yeah, you mention it, I'll get 10% off. Yeah. Hear it now.
So I just, want to thank you. If there's anything you'd like to say to anybody that's listening to add to it, the mic is yours.
No, just, be kind to everybody. People, even everybody is facing their own demons, facing their own battles. So just make kindness the default.
Well, until the next episode, there you have it.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.